Right, now, this is the first lesson on the definite aspect of your exam. Now, Unit 5 in our course is focusing on why the slave trade was abolished in the years 1785 to 1807. But more specifically, what this looks at is why the slave trade was abolished in England. Now, we've got to understand that the slave trade and slavery was abolished in different areas at different times, overall being abolished in 1833. What we need to understand in this lesson is we are going to look at the first reason why the slave trade was abolished. But we also need to understand what this question entails in the exam. Now, this is only going to be lesson 1, and we're going to look at humanitarian campaigners today. But I want us to get our head around the concept of what you need to do for this question, because this is a guaranteed question to come up in the exam. It will be one of 4 things that they ask you, but you've got to have an understanding on 4 different reasons why the slave trade was abolished. Now, the first mistake you can't make in this is saying that slavery was abolished. This was the slave trade, okay, the concept of trading Africans to different parts of the world. Now, we're going to do 3 things. We're going to describe how you're going to be assessed in the aspect of the course, to look at how to evaluate interpretations, very similar to your paper 3 at GCSE, and then we're going to just touch upon humanitarian beliefs for you to look over some things for this lesson and do a few tasks. So in the exam, you get section A, which is an essay question, section B, which is an essay question, and section C, which is a compulsory interpretation question. And the question will always ask, in light of differing interpretations, how convincing do you find the view that the slave trade ended because? And it will be something along these lines. It might pick a line out in one interpretation, but it will blame one of 4 things. And it will say, how convincing do you find the view that it ended because of this? Now, some of the key terms here in this is that, first of all, the 2 interpretations will be different. It will have a focus on one thing, but the key thing, you must use both extracts and use your own knowledge. What you can't do in this is bring in something that the extracts don't say, but we'll talk about that when we go into an actual essay practice that we do later on. Now, in this side of the course, you'll be happy to know that we only look at 4 things. This is this is the smallest unit, but also it's the most guaranteed unit, as if you know these 4 things, you will be absolutely sorted going into the exam. It's very much one of the easiest questions if you understand the extracts. So what we need to look at is 4 things. We need to look at the importance of humanitarian campaigns and the influence of religion. That's one reason why the slave trade was abolished. The significance of economic and financial factors. Significance of individuals, including Thomas Clarkson, William Wilberforce, and Olaudah Equiano, and the changing political climate, including the fear of slave rebellion and resistance. Now, what you'll notice in this question above, it says fear of slave rebellion, whereas in the scheme of learning, it says fear of slave resistance. That's your job to get your head around what the words mean. But as I say, it could ask you multiple reasons in this question. You've got to know all 4 of these things in detail about what impact it had on the slave trade ending by 1807. And this is the mark scheme for this unit. And this is what I'll be using when we practice interpretation questions over the next 4 or 5 weeks. Now, realistically, I would like most people to be getting above level 3. Because it's such a guaranteed question, we need to make sure that you're getting as much as possible from this to ensure that you get a C and above in this paper. So it's split up into 3 sections: understanding and analysis of the extracts, use of your contextual knowledge, and evaluation and judgment of both the extracts and the question. So with your understanding and analysis of extracts, we'll just go straight to level 4. You demonstrate the understanding of extracts, analysing the issues of the interpretation raised within them, and by comparison of them. So you need to have some element of comparison to be able to get the top marks. Understanding the differences between them. Integrate issues raised by extracts with those from own knowledge to discuss the views. Most of the relevant aspects of the debate will be discussed, although treatment of some aspects may lack depth. That just means that you use good knowledge where some parts of it may be lacking depth. If you go to level 5, integrate issues raised by extracts with those from own knowledge when discussing the presented evidence and differing arguments. Just means that you're using a wide range of contextual knowledge. And your quality of evaluation, you discuss evidence provided in the extracts in order to reach a supported and overall judgment. Discussion of the points of view in the extracts demonstrates understanding that the issues are matters of interpretation. And level 5 presents sustained evaluative judgments. You're always saying how strong the arguments are, how weak the arguments are. Now, this won't make much sense at this stage. When we go to our first essay, I will make sure that you have a full understanding of what's expected of this piece. It will take some time to get your head around, but the good thing about this is that this is also the exact same skill that you've got to use in your coursework. Now, in terms of what the interpretations will look like, this is what they'll look like. Okay, they're not going to be too lengthy. They're going to be enough for you to evaluate in around the 45-minute mark that you have for this question. Now, we're going to go through the structure shortly. Now, what you need to understand first and foremost, and this is really important for the overall grand scheme of things. So what you're doing in this question is you're analysing historians' view on this topic. You evaluate it by understanding the overall message and by picking parts out that you both agree and disagree with, and to use your own knowledge to develop your own opinion. Now, an interpretation, just going to make sure we get this, is a historian's point of view. What you're doing in this question is you're analysing it thoroughly to show, number one, you understand them. 2, your knowledge links to them. 3, you can compare and contrast what they're saying. And 4, you can judge in your historical opinion which you think has the strongest argument. It's just like the Germany paper at GCSE. The only difference is that the interpretations are considerably longer. There is language within the interpretations that you might not understand. And we need to make sure that you understand all those key terms to go ahead and be successful in this question. Now, the bit of advice I will say is, if you don't understand a certain part of the interpretation, that is okay, as long as you understand the overall message and parts to agree and disagree with, you will be fine. As long as you can judge how strong you think those arguments are, this is the skill of this response. By judging a historical interpretation, it's down to you to be able to back up why you think that. Now, I'm just going to show you an example of a level 3 response. Now, level 3, we're looking at between 9 and 12. This is a good basis to start so you get an understanding. Then we will develop it further later on when we look at further example essays. So, this is the exact same question that we were that I introduced the lesson with. How convincing do you find the view that the slave trade ended because of the fear of slave rebellions? Now, this is the start of their essay. The first thing that this is missing is it's missing an introduction, and that's something that I will add to this structure shortly. You need to have an introduction for this question, and I'll add that now. We'll look at introductions as we get more in depth with the overall understanding of what the question requires. But first of all, you start with an introduction. Then the thing is, you'll probably notice that this person starts with extract 2. And what it says here, extract 2 disagrees that slave rebellions were the most influential factor in the abolition of the slave trade. Instead, he argues that it was more the work of humanitarian reasons. Now, another thing I don't really like with this is that they've started disagreeing with the question. If we go back to the interpretations, if it will allow us, we just go back here. There we go. If we get back here, it says here in extract 1, this talks about slave rebellion. Extract 2 talks about another factor. It talks about individuals. Now, if the question was asking me to what extent it was slave rebellion that was causing the slave trade to be abolished, I would start with the extract that focuses on the question, not an extract that goes against the question to start off with. So my first bit of advice in terms of this question is always start with the extract that links to the question.